down today, again, another Wednesday with the Minerals Commission, and we are looking at how to sanitize the small-scale mining sector and the measures the government has put in place to bring this whole issue of illegal small-scale mining, which we popularly come to call galamsey. We are looking at the efforts government is putting in place to reduce this to the barest minimum. Last week, the government launched the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, and it was meant to be an alternative for persons who had engaged in illegal mining, who had lost their sources of livelihoods because of the clampdown on the illegal activity, to get a gainful means of employment to, get their own lives in order. Also, sector, save the water bodies, keep our environment safe. Last week, we discussed the new system that the Commission had put in place called the Mining Cadastral Administrative System, MCAS, which is the online platform they are introducing at the Minerals Commission. And the go-live date for that system coming on board is November 1, so that was on Monday. So the MCAS platform for the Minerals Commission is now live. It means that from here on out, you have to go online to submit all your documents in order to get any license from the Minerals Commission. Today, as I said, we're looking at the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, and in the studio to help us understand the details of this program, Mr. Benjamin Aryee, an advisor on mining to the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Mr. Aryee, good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
We are going to discuss the measures government has employed to tackle the illegal small-scale mining. First of all, there are those who have this perception that all small-scale mining activities are illegal, but we know that there are licensed companies who who prospect for gold on a very small scale. So not all small-scale mining operations are illegal. Would you like to clarify that?
Sure. Let me start off by saying thank you very much for the opportunity, and to say hearty greetings to your listeners, your viewers. Let me clarify prospecting. We often say prospecting when talking about small-scale mining. Prospecting has nothing to do with small-scale mining when licenses are granted. Prospecting means to find mineral. So small-scale mining licenses are exploitation rights. Okay. So they are given to you to be able to mine. So you must have found the mineral before exploiting it, and so on. So that's the first clarification I want to make. And again, once licenses are given, you are supposed to follow a certain procedure to ensure that you do things right. So obviously, those who don't have licenses may not have been taken through the processes that one needs to do mining responsibly. So generally, they have problems. But those who have licenses don't necessarily do the right thing all the time, which is also not acceptable. So the drive is generally to ensure that those who don't know what to do get to talk to the Minerals Commission so that they are guided to do the right things, ultimately getting a license to be able to operate. Then they can be given further advice and so on. But those who get to have a license as well, so that they understand exactly what they ought to do and do the right things. Because mining has the potential to cause significant damage to the environment, but also the communities and the people around them. So you don't want to do that unnecessarily. So you must know what you're doing and do it right. That's important.
For those who have not received the license to go into mining, and for those who are into mining for the wrong reasons, so depleting our forests and polluting the environment, government has come down hard on what we've come to call galamsey. And as a result of that action, some people have lost livelihoods. And that's why government is putting this alternative employment and livelihood program in place. What does it really entail? What does it offer to these persons who have now expressed their readiness to get into another means of making a life?
Maybe a little bit of background to that. His Excellency the President at his last sessional address to Parliament during his first term, and indeed his inaugural one during the second term, did indicate that he was going to have broad stakeholder consultation to ensure that we are doing what we generally agree as a consensus position. So we had the national stakeholder along with some regional ones as soon as the new minister was put in place. So as part of the conversation, the decisions from that dialogue, it was agreed that one of the key things we need to do is to up our game as far as enforcement of regulations, etc. is concerned. So His Excellency therefore endorsed what has been styled as Operation Halt 2, which is the military going out there to try to limit, if not eliminate completely, any mining activities on or near our water bodies, which were polluting them, and also in forests, etc. So that was sort of the goal, to ensure we limit the negative impacts and so on.
And so, what is the level of achievement for Operation Halt 2?
It's not achieved all we wanted to do. What we wanted to do was to clear up the water bodies completely. We have not achieved that clearly, because if you look at the number of the water bodies, they are still fairly milky and not as clear as we want to have them be. So we have not achieved completely that. But within a short space of time of their starting, we saw the clearing up of some of the water bodies, and until today, some are better than they were prior to the start. But we have not achieved that completely.
And one of the reasons for that is because people are still mining at what we've come to call the red zones. Explain the red zones to us and explain exactly why it's been so hard to stop these people who are engaging in this illegality.
The red zones are simply our water bodies and the lands that adjoin them and our forest reserves. So what we're saying is that, yes, a number of people are doing illegal things, not completely in conformity with the law. We have sometimes turned a blind eye on them because the impact is not that significant. But these areas styled as the red zones are areas which have major impacts on all of us if the improper things are done. So the plan is to ensure that we rid those areas completely of illegal mining activities. In some instances, on the water bodies, for instance, we don't want any mining activities at all because they will negatively impact the water bodies. So generally, those are the red zones. So the Operation Halt was to work within the red zones largely to ensure that we rid them of it. So if you look at areas adjoining the water bodies, generally, there's been some limitation of mining activities.
Why does it seem that the miners are so attracted to?
Two reasons. There are two types of mining generally in the small-scale mining sector. What they call the hard rock, which means excavating the hard rock, grinding it, if you may, and then washing it to come up with the gold, and so on. So you need to be able to wash the material once ground. So that's for the hard rock. So you need water. And it's easier if you are nearer the water body to do that. The second type, which is described as alluvial, is material that has been washed by water and deposited. And the deposition clearly will be either near or in the water bodies. And it's easier to mine because you don't have any crushing to do. So typically, the small-scale miner who has little of capital to invest will be targeting that type of ore that he wants to extract. So that's attraction to water. So generally, if there's no water, you can't do much of mining, especially on the small-scale mining basis. So that's attraction to water. So Operation Halt did attain some successes. That is why we have people who have been displaced. But let me say that some who are Castra now sorted to mining at night. But let me serve them notice that the military, the security agencies are planning a new strategy for them. I wouldn't disclose that here, but they should be ready for it. Indeed, working together with those who are doing legal mining, we've got a number of task forces who are bringing themselves together to ensure that we deal with this holistically. So that is certainly going to happen. So they shouldn't think that this was a one-day wonder and over. It's not over.
So this thing you started some months ago where you were going around some of the forest areas, I believe that my producer Felix Kofi was part of the team. Sure. You've gone around a few. It's not just a one-off thing. It's something that we are to expect should continue.
Yeah, it's part of a big picture. So the security operations are going to continue with emphasis from the regional security councils rather than just from Accra, so that then they will be ready to act fairly quickly on these matters. And there have been examples. The Western region is doing a lot of that already, and other regions are going to follow suit. So the operators, illegal operators that is, should not think it's over. It's not. And there's a lot more that's going to happen in that field.
I'll go back to my earlier question on what in this alternative employment and livelihood for those who have laid down their illegal mining tools and want to embrace this new initiative.
Yeah. So really the issue is that His Excellency the President and his government very keen on ensuring that we have livelihoods properly defined for as many Ghanaians, if not every Ghanaian, as possible. So given that some were displaced, although doing illegal activities, His Excellency decided to find means of generating alternatives for them. And so our ministry was tasked to come up with this program. And the ministry came up with a set of 6 activities, if you may, which we are hoping will address the wide range of people we are talking about, from the miners themselves to their families which depend on them, through people who indirectly depend on their activities, and through other people who engage in all sorts of economic activities to support these activities. So it's quite a wide range of activities we are looking at. So having packaged these, we got cabinet approval, and then subsequently this was tabled in Parliament as part of the media review of the budget for this year. And so I'll go through
the 6 activities.
Yes, these are activities,
okay,
so that we get to know what they are. The first 3, which are directly related to our ministry, involve what we have described as responsible, viable, and sustainable mining. And we chose the words very carefully. Responsible, viable, and sustainable small-scale mining. I'll come back to it. Then to support that activity, we tried to improve mine services, which will support that activity. But as I did indicate earlier, once you engage in mining, you impact the environment to some extent. So we have some legacy issues as far as negative impacts on the environment. So the third one we targeted was the National Land Reclamation and Reforestation Program. So it is to ensure that we physically reclaim lands that have been impacted and then to replant economic trees on them. So that's the third. So these 3 are generally things that fall directly within the remit of our ministry. So we are championing this directly. But beyond that, as I said, we are not just looking at miners, but we're looking at people who depend on them as well. And they lost economic livelihood as well. So there are 3 others which we are looking at, mainly agro-processing. There's a lot of agricultural initiatives which the Ministry of Agric is doing. We think that we can improve that by adding value to the output of these agric initiatives. So agro-processing is a big thing that we're looking at. We're working largely with the Ministry of Trade and Industry to get to do some of these things. Then, of course, we have the apprenticeship and entrepreneurship wing of it, which is to just develop people to be able to generate for themselves incomes through businesses and improving their businesses largely. And the last one, which is sort of an innovative one, is enhancement of sustainability of the livelihood schemes. And this is largely to improve community, economic and social activities.
How are we finding the people who fit any of these activities that have been identified, or these ways that people can attach themselves to make a livelihood for them? What's the criteria?
The target is displaced illegal miners and people who depend on them in various ways.
We are hearing that they made a lot of money from illegal mining activities in the thousands of cedis, sometimes on a daily basis, from what we've been told. Is this going to bring them that same level of income that they are used to, which would make them more likely to stay with the activities more long term?
If you look at the illegal mining group that we are looking at, it's not a homogeneous group. It is a range of people doing different activities. You can start from what we call the sponsors, who are really the financiers. They fund the activities. They can make lots of money if they find a good place. We're told they could make up to 3,000 cedis in a day to a week. Depends on how good the place is. Down to those who are basically supervisors of the operations. And they could be making about 1,000 days a week. But then come to the miners, who are really the majority of about the 1 million people who we think are displaced. This group, this latter group, the miners themselves, constitute about 80%. So they are really the focus of these initiatives. And they we expect to be making of the order of about 900 cedis per week. A lot of people don't make that.
So I'm asking again, obviously money to be made there. 80% of 1 million people being miners. So you are targeting them for the first three that you mentioned.
Yeah.
So you want them to move from illegal to legal. Is that what you're saying? And to adopt the standards in the industry that make for responsible mining.
Yes.
Okay.
So really, maybe let me quickly add that in the illegal realm, it's high risk. You may or may not make anything at all, because you know that the security guys might come after you. Again, you go to land, nobody has checked to find whether it has any minerals. So you go there to work, you may not make anything for a day, week, or month. So what is the key attraction to getting into the regularized realm is we are finding areas suitable for small-scale mining. And we are supporting in various ways. I'm sure the Minerals Commission has mentioned some of the things they're doing, including putting them together and supporting them to operate efficiently. Providing equipment, for instance, to help them to recover the gold which they break their back to mine out. Unfortunately for them, because it's illegal, because they don't know exactly what they're doing, we're told that they recover somewhere between 30 to about 50% of the gold they mine. The rest is waste. They have lost money. Ghana has lost because we cannot go back to recover gold anymore. So the Minerals Commission, under the auspices of the ministry, has invested in equipment to help improve this. And each of these community mining schemes, which is the responsible, viable, and sustainable mining drive that we are pushing, is going to get one of these equipment at least. And that improves recoveries to about 90%. So you can imagine the difference.
So let's bring this home a little bit. Sure. Someone who was into the illegal act decides that, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. And they approach you and say, I want to be part of this program. Yeah. How do they access you? And then what happens after they've come to you to say, we want to be a part of this?
Okay. The Minerals Commission has offices across the country. And we are encouraging people to go to these offices and say, I want to get into small-scale mining. If you already have a place in mind, they will check it up for you. And if it's not suitable, they will tell you and then help you to find an alternative. Again, there are areas we already know of, some of which had been explored previously by large-scale mines and which we have negotiated to get for small-scale mining. So we're targeting them for these community mining, as we call them, responsible, viable, sustainable mining. So groups of these miners are put together to work on such areas, to do it responsibly under the supervision of technical personnel to ensure it's being done right, but also to ensure that it is responsibly done, but viable. If it's not viable, none of the other things we're thinking about is going to happen.
And that's why you're bringing the technologies that increase the recovery rates to about 90%.
Yes. But beyond that, also ensuring that between the Minerals Commission and the Geological Survey, they are finding areas suitable which have enough of resource to be mined. If you don't have resource, you can put in the best technology, you won't make any money. So that is also very important as part of this package that we are bringing to the fore.
So is it a system that they get an allowance every month?
No, that's why I say the people we are targeting is a range. The people who already have money to invest in mining, these are the sponsors. If you cut them out, they will attract people into illegal mining still. So within the big picture, what we're trying to do is get these people to invest in the community mining. So they become the sponsors of the community mining. So they're still investing in mining, but not illegal mining. And so they get to pay the miners themselves still, because they are business people. They want to make money, they get people to work for them, and they make a return and pay the workers. So that's still the framework. So we are migrating them from illegal operations to legal operations which are done right, and then eliminating, if possible, the negative impacts. That's sort of the context.
Mr. Aryee, now that you've mentioned negative things, it brings sharp focus on the issue of smuggling of gold. In recent times, we've heard that Ghana's gold is smuggled across our borders to other countries, and you're very concerned about that because that means we are losing money. Yeah. How serious is it, and what are we doing to stop this?
It is a suspicion we have, and we have reason to believe that's the case, although we have not really caught people red-handed. The reason is this. Over the last 5 years or so, the small-scale mining sector has contributed about 30% of the total gold production of the country. But since last year, there's been a decline in the contribution. And this year is extremely stark. Indeed, this year we expect that the contribution will be no more than 5%. And you ask why? It's a challenge we have tried to investigate.
So you're thinking if it's not coming to the government of Ghana, then it's going somewhere else?
It must be going somewhere else. Because it's
but you're sure the mining rate is the same? So we are still putting in the same number of hours with the same resources, presumably. I mean, I don't pretend to know much about mining.
It's about the same. Probably even more. Production we expect to be more, because more people are getting into it through the community mining and so on. So then the question is, what is happening?
Could it be the withholding tax?
Well, our strong suspicion is that it is part of it. There must be other reasons. The reason I say that is that last year, if you did look at the production trend for last year, whilst there was a decline throughout the year, except for October, something happened. There was an increase in the security swoop to check smuggling and so on. So suddenly, the amounts that were brought into the official channels increased. So that was the only time that it happened. So that gives us reason to believe that smuggling must be a very key part of our not getting small-scale miners contributing to that. Now, question is why? Our suspicion is that the withholding tax, which was imposed by government, is a contributor to that. So what can we do about it? Having had quite a lot of discussion around this matter, government is looking at reviewing that tax, possibly downwards, along with a number of other measures to ensure that even as we broaden the net for small-scale miners contributing to the development of the country, at the same time, it is not too onerous. And indeed, government has been willing to do that in the past. If you look at the law originally, it imposed a 10% rate. Given discussion with industry, it was reduced to 3%. But as we look at the sub-region, the rate is of the order of 1 to 2.2% compared to our 3. Yes. So government is looking at dealing with that, and we believe that that will address to a large extent.
Mr. Aryee, your final comment on this alternative program and the prospects for those who may be interested before we wrap. A quick one.
The government is keen on getting this done. In fact, His Excellency the President is so keen on it that he keeps asking how far we have gone since the approval. So currently an acting director has been appointed to champion the project. And she's working with the Minerals Commission to ensure that we drive all these fronts. But as I did say, we have started with the 3 which directly affect us. We are pushing, indeed, as I speak, we have launched 5 community mining schemes already, which we are expecting would generate of the order of about 26,000 jobs, already absorbing some of the illegal miners into this. We're expecting that by the end of the year we would have some more. But to even streamline the procedure, the scheme more, Friday, that is 2 days down the line, we're going to Takwa. One of the things we are doing going to Takwa is to ensure that we put in place what we call the model scheme, model community mining scheme, to ensure that they have things like washrooms, they have changing rooms, and they put in place a system to ensure that things are being done properly, not just haphazardly like they were doing under the illegal mining scheme. So this is being done alongside promoting people getting into it. So there's no shortfall in people wanting to get into it. It is government having the resources to expand the front, and government is willing to do that. So government is doing that very keenly, along with, of course, the reclamation, fiscal reclamation, and working with Forestry Commission, reforesting.
Thank you so much for spending time with us this morning to explain the government initiative, which is the National Alternative Employment and Livelihood Program, an alternative for illegal miners who want to become legit. The aspect that has to do with mining is giving them the opportunity to legalize their act and mine more responsibly. Responsible, viable and sustainable mining is the way to go.